coaches certainly want the bye as late as possible because it's about health more than anything else.
Yeah.
There's, most teams do a self-scout during the bye week, and they look at what their own team is doing and try to improve everything they can as far as scheme goes in the little bit of time they have. And it's the same thing we just said. The sample size is so small. I don't think you're going to see drastic changes, certainly offensively, because they perform pretty well. And defensively, as we said, I'm not trying to defend them because they have not played well. But some of that is due to the competition. You expect a natural improvement when you get some of the lesser teams on the schedule. And I think that's the way the coaches are going to look at it. And the second part you mentioned is it's a new coaching staff. And we had talked before the season. I think it was going to be an issue, especially losing coordinators like the coordinators they lost. I think you were going to have some hiccups. So I don't know if they're going to look at themselves and say, we got to change some things. And I think, so in that part of it, I think it hurts, and certainly from a health aspect, nobody wants to buy this early because, in theory, this is one of the times you'll be healthier than others. But that's not always necessarily true. If you see Washington this week, I think they had 17 people on the injury report. So, it depends on the game. It depends where you are. But, they're relatively healthy. So, you never kind of want it that early for that part of it.
And I understand that too, because it is a long season. I think that's part of the reason why they loaded up at certain positions. Offensively, we talked about the quarterback. Are you where are you at with the Browns offensively? Obviously, the numbers look good, but wide receivers I think have performed better than a lot of people thought. Hawkins early on has been the favored target there, and even with some injury issues with Jordan Cameron not having Josh Gordon, we thought that would be more of a detriment. But these guys have found ways to get open, whether you want to call it the play action. I know that's a big part of it with the running game, and they're actually having to respect that. But guys are getting open, whether it's Shanahan, schemes, Hoyer, whatever it is. The wide receivers have found ways to catch balls. That's big, too. They're not dropping them. I think they've only got three drops through the first 3 games, 2 or 3 drops through the first 3 games. They had 39 last season in 16 games. So, clearly they were averaging 3 drops a game or two drops a game last year. So, an improvement there. But offensively, is it just, you've got the running, it just seems like they've been a much more competent offense than a lot of people expected them to be.
Yeah, I think it starts with the running game because, they couldn't run the ball at all last year. It was, it was just, and when you can't run, when you have no threat at all, it's so difficult to get people to bite on play action, and that makes it so much more difficult. So I think that's been the biggest improvement, the biggest key, and the fact that you're right. Andrew Hawkins, we talked about, we knew he was a good receiver. I was, more of a slot receiver, but he's proven to be a guy who's been able to get open consistently. And Miles Austin's been a lot better than most people thought. I guess if you want, the one issue is that they're having difficulty pushing the ball down the field, which is, not surprising because the deep threat is supposed to be Josh Gordon and he's not there. So I think Austin's under 10 yards a catch. Hawkins, maybe at 11 yards a catch. So you generally want your wide receivers to have bigger numbers than that, and that's an indication you're not pushing the ball down the field. But, for what they have skill position wise, and what people expected, it's been a lot better than anyone could have imagined.
How much of that do you credit to Kyle Shanahan and his scheme? Because there was a lot of questions heading in on what that was going to look like. How much of that do you give to him and what he's done offensively with the play calling?
Well, I think he's done it. I think you have to give him a lot of credit. It's one of those issues, and
I do.
We talked about, losing Norv Turner, losing, Ray Horton, and how much respect they have. I mean, it's clearly been a better offense early again, and we put the short sample size caveat on there. It's been a better offense than Norv put together. Couldn't generate a running game no matter who he had, and while you could say some of that, if you look at what's going on in Minnesota, obviously they lost Adrian Peterson. Similar situation to what happened in Cleveland last year, not able to generate a running game. Whereas if you think about Bobby Rainey going down to Tampa Bay and having at least some success there, so maybe you have to point and say, Norv Turner's not quite as good as people thought he was, and Kyle Shanahan's just doing a better job. On the other hand, defense is supposed to be the domain of the head coach, and the defense is not even remotely near what it was last year. So, it's been a mixed bag, but it's been better than what people expected.
Right, and I'm not going to go off about the trick plays. I mean, that some people like that more than others. I do like it when it keeps the other team on their edge, but my thing that I've liked about Shanahan through 3 games, like you said, small sample size, is he seems to have an ability, and Norv did not last year. It did not show me anyway, the ability to fit your offense to what you've got, to make the most out of, use guys to their strengths. That was something we used a lot last year. Instead of, playing into your own weaknesses, play to your strengths and cover your weaknesses. And I do like early on that it seems like Shanahan evaluated his guys and said, look, this guy's good here. I can get this out of this guy. And he's getting what they do. Like he's catering and tailoring an offense to the limitations of what he's got. And that's important. I mean, play into your talent,
Yeah, anyone who's listened to me at any point, I can't stand scheme coaches that kind of have their scheme no matter what, and no matter what talent they have on hand.
They'll force them in,
force them in, and the square peg in the round hole type of thing. To me, the truly great coaches are the ones that look at what they have on hand, because you're never going to have everything you want as a football coach. So you have to look at what you have, and you have to maximize their abilities, what they do well, and you have to hide as many as the deficiencies as you can. And that, to me, is the true greatness of a coach, and that's what you'll see. We constantly talk about Bill Belichick doing that, and he's been the best. There's no question about it. But you see what Chip Kelly's able to do in Philadelphia, offensively. Last week, for instance, he won that game. The strength of the Eagles team is supposed to be their offensive line, which, Jason Peters is an all-pro at left tackle. Evan Mathis, all-pro at left guard. Jason Kelsey might be the best center in football. Lane Johnson was the number 4 overall pick. All those guys were gone last week. Peters got thrown out of the game. Mathis is hurt. Kelsey got hurt. Lane Johnson is suspended. He had an offensive line that, could have, probably couldn't start at Alabama on the college level, and he put up 37 points.
I know.
Absolutely did not care. Whereas other coaches, and you see it, and I hate to pick on Norv Turner, but I'm going to. Obviously some serious things have happened in Minnesota, and anytime you lose Adrian Peterson, and then Matt Castle gets hurt, and Kyle Rudolph gets hurt, and he goes into a shell. Well, I can't do anything. That's not your job as a coach. Your job is to take what the new players do better and put them in better positions to succeed. And that's why that's the difference to me between great coaches and bad coaches.
Let's talk as we head and wrap this thing up. NFL through 3 weeks. Browns are on a bye this week. A lot of other teams playing. What has caught your fancy here in the first couple of weeks? Any surprises, or what have you taken note of most in the first 3 games of the season?
Well, I think I look at some of those teams that we expected to be good and aren't nearly as good. And I know I picked New Orleans to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. It does not look good early on. They showed no evidence of being able to win on the road. Still, I think some of the, San Francisco, on the other hand, is a team a lot of us thought would take a step back because of the Bowman injury, the Aldon Smith suspension. That's kind of coming into fruition. And, Green Bay, I think a lot of people assume, I think Green Bay, and I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago, I think more than anything else, Green Bay is reputation now. And, Ted Thompson has this tremendous reputation. But he's done a really, really bad job drafting offensive linemen over the past 4 or 5 years. Mike McCarthy has this tremendous reputation as an offensive coach. Dom Capers has a tremendous reputation, but that defense hasn't been good for 3 years now. So I think, a lot of what's going on with Green Bay is reputation, and they're not nearly as good as people thought they were.
It's funny. I'm looking at the PFT power rankings, and next to Green Bay, they say, "Well, maybe they just stink." And Aaron Rodgers is out there telling people, "Hey, relax. We're gonna get it together. No reason to panic just yet." But yeah, man, definitely. You wonder. That's funny too, because I kind of thought in similar vein. You wonder, man, how much of that is just going, "Oh, well, it's the Packers. They got Aaron Rodgers. They're gonna be one." Well, of the
it
teams.
Is. And by the way, they are going to win 9-10 games just because they have Aaron Rodgers. But as far as being a lot of people consider them a true Super Bowl contender, I don't think they're even close to that. And I think it's one of those instances where the great quarterback has been masking quite a few deficiencies for 2 or 3 years now.
I got one team that I've got to circle around because we've seen them. We personally have seen them at, I think, their best and their worst here in Cleveland, and now with the injury issues and all of that, Pittsburgh. What do you think through the first couple of games here for Pittsburgh? Which team are they, and how much of these injuries? I mean, you lose Taylor. Obviously, you re-signed Harrison to try to fill some of that depth, but he's been, on the shelf for a minute. You lose Jones, and they're at least going to be a week without Shazier. So what do you think about the Steelers? Where are they at here through a couple of games? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, and I think Le'Veon Bell is the most improved player in all of football. I saw him. It doesn't even look like the same guy who was at Michigan State. He's lost about 15 pounds. I called him when he was coming out of college. I called him a big back who doesn't run like a big back. He was this big guy who was kind of a finesse runner, and now he looks like Shady McCoy running around with this tremendous cutback ability. And you never know. That's the thing about the NFL. You don't know in the off season what players are taking their profession seriously. And there's a guy who's taken his profession very seriously, got in shape, and has just taken this tremendous leap. He leads the NFL in scrimmage yards through 3 games, and I think he's been the best back in all of football. And if you ask me who the best running back would be in football before the season started, he wouldn't have been in my top 20. So that's a real positive for Pittsburgh, and I think it's going to help them. Obviously the injuries hurt. I think Jarvis Jones was starting to come on. He's going to be gone for an extended period. So it's still a wait-and-see mode, but I think they're going to be a lot better offensively simply because Bell is the real deal at running back, and that's just going to help that passing game.
Last team I got circled here, I thought they were going to have a good season this year, but I think early on, obviously small sample size. Where you at with the Cardinals here? Arizona, Bruce Arians. That was a guy I said yesterday. I couldn't remember if it was 1 or 2 coaching searches ago for the Browns, but he was definitely one that I wanted the Browns to bring back home and install as the head coach. He ended up in Arizona so far doing some good things there and with the backup quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know how they can keep it up. Of the 3-0 teams, with Drew Stanton long term, and we don't know, it's a nerve injury in the shoulder of Carson Palmer. If he's going to be out for an extended period of time, I think they're going to have a real difficult time keeping. Certainly, nobody's going to go 16-0, obviously, but Drew Stanton is what he is, and they've done a nice job.